Okay. Thank you, Britta. Thank you, Trish.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everybody. I'm Bifarhank, and I am the founder of Bgood Collective. We are a sustainability agency, and we work with purpose-led organizations, small and medium-sized businesses, as well as social enterprises to help enhance their social impact. We're very excited to have with us tonight Aisha Vultur, who is the founder of Shegul. Hi, Aisha.
Hi.
Really exciting to have you here. Aisha Vultur is not just a former colleague, but she's also a friend and a like-minded change maker who's passionate about driving social impact through her work and her business. I'm pleased to be able to do this fireside chat with you, Aisha. Just to give everybody a little bit of background on Aisha, and we're going to get into some Q&A after this, but Aisha bridges the world of fashion and social impact through her contemporary plus-size brand, Shegul, like I mentioned earlier. Before her starting her company, Aisha spent years building a very impressive career in the fashion industry, specifically on the production and sourcing side, with companies, working for companies such as The Gap, Mayette, Cachet, which is where Shegul and I met and worked together for several years, Kate, 4 Days, and a number of other ones, including many other ones through her consultancy work. Her job took her all over the globe, working with big, huge factories and suppliers in a lot of different countries, including China and India and many, many more. And it also exposed her to the elements of the fashion industry that were not always ideal, really related to waste, ethical standards, labor rights, labor laws. She'll go into some of that with us. But her time with brands like Mayette and The Gap and 4 Days also exposed her to some new approaches and mindsets on using fashion as a force for good to bring about change. And I'd love to just learn more about some of her work there and some of the things that she learned. But as she launched her own brand 5 years ago, Aisha knew the values that were important to her that she wanted to incorporate in her own brand, and it's sustainability and social responsibility. And if you go to her website, you'll see a lot of the not only the goals that she's set for herself, but also what the vision and the mission of the company is. And she'll tell us a little bit more about it. As she continues on her sustainability journey, she's most recently expanded her impact strategy to include a carbon offset project with local villages in Turkey. And I recently learned a little bit about this project. I think it's so inspiring, and I can't wait to have the audience learn more about it, and also for myself to just dig in a bit more. So we'll go into the Q&A section next, and I'll kick it off with just starting to just tell the story of each of us and how we started on our journey and our businesses. I'll kick it off and tell the audience a little bit about Bgood and how that came about. For myself, having lived in many countries growing up, I've always seen the world as interconnected, with all of us having collective responsibility to bring positive change and impact in what we do. But on the flip side of it, I've also spent my career in the fashion industry and recognized and have seen the waste and some of the inefficiencies that exist in the industry. I've also realized that the industry has had a long way to go in seeing the world as a global community and acting with a sense of urgency to bring really change, sustainable change, social and environmental. Along my career, alongside of my career, I've also spent quite a number of years working in the nonprofit sector. I've started my own nonprofit sector years ago, but I also have worked alongside of it, sort of on the side gigs, if you will, and been passionate about that social impact space, and really started to understand how nonprofits start social enterprises and the need for sustainable business models, or sustainable models, I should say, for nonprofits to deliver impact really comes with having sustainable growth, and an enterprise really helps a nonprofit get there. So for me, we really became a journey of bringing my two passions together and thinking how I could incorporate my fashion background and my business background along with the passion of impact. And that's when I met my co-founder, Johanna, who also came from the fashion industry, but also from the consulting industry. And we realized that we were very like-minded in not just our view of the world, but also in terms of where we wanted to go with our work. We both wanted to be able to do work that allowed us more autonomy, that allowed us to be more purposeful and to deliver impact. And so that's how we started on our journey to put together Bgood Collective, to help companies become more sustainable and to really help social enterprises grow and maintain their sustainability through their growth. So with that, Aisha, I'd love to just pass that same intro to you and ask you to tell us a little bit about how you got started on your journey.
First, thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I am honored to be part of this event, honestly. This is one of my first, so bear with me. After I have had a long career in corporate section. For many years, I've worked for giant corporations, and if you have ever been part of the corporations, you know how that machine works. There's lots of bureaucracy, there's a lot of pressure about the profitability, but also there is a lot of focus on the social responsibility and social compliance side. When I first started working for Gap Inc., I was exposed to the side of the business where I did not know much before. When initially I was working for small companies, everything was about fashion. And once I was in Gap, I was like, okay, there's another world here. No child labor, you have to pay fair wages, you have to pay overtime, and all these things start to engrave into my DNA as well, because Gap Inc. was a school for me. After a while, corporate world has taken its toll. I decided at the time it's time to move on and do
another thing we have in common. I totally understand that.
And it has become time to do something good. And I joined to another company, Mayet, which focused social responsibility and ethical practices, and merging it with the luxury fashion. It has had its challenges. I'll not glamorize it for anyone. It was not an easy world. Then the time came, I was physically and emotionally exhausted, started my journey as a size 2 to 4 girl and graduated with size 12 to 14. And I experienced from firsthand how difficult it was to find clothing for myself. I love fashion. I grew up, it has been long. To your point, we love our fashion, but we also see the waste in the fashion world. But I was looking around, there was a group of consumers who could enjoy endlessly fashion. And then there was another group of like-minded people who could barely find anything. Again, I don't want to insult anyone. Of course, there are people who are out there producing for the plus size community as well, but there was not as much of a choice. It was more whatever you are given. So after I left Mayet, for the first time in my career, that was very first, I had more than 1 week to sit down and think about what I want to do about my life. Before, it was a rat race. I was more like a hamster in a wheel, run. I love fashion. I love design. I love to be conscious about social responsibility and all the compliance aspect of it. And I want to do something good for the plus size community as well. So
did you start with both of those as pillars of the business? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
At the time, sustainability was not as front and center, because when I was in Europe, when I from Turkey, I moved to London, I did see sustainability. This is like 15 years ago. Sustainability was a little bit more important in Europe at the time. But when I moved to the United States, actually, it's sad to say there was not a peep of sustainability out there. It was all about social responsibility and social compliance.
That's right.
So that's why it's just like, that's how I built Shegul, and started pouring my heart and soul into it. And during the journey, I also have started doing some consultancies so that I can share my knowledge about many other things. I have been in this industry long enough, but also as part of supporting my brand, I start doing consultancies, just like you have mentioned, 4 days, Kate and Hedge, Sold Out. There are many brands that I try to provide as much guidance and support as I can.
And it kept you in that space, right? Corporate social responsibility and somewhat of a sustainability angle as well. All of these brands, interestingly.
Yes. And the interesting thing, and the thing I love actually, is my consultancies also helps me to guide, nudge the people who may not necessarily be interested in the sustainability world that much. I can nudge them towards, like, okay, how about let's using organic cotton instead of regular cotton? How about like trying to do things differently, whether it's a pillar of their business or not. So it was a great thing, because now like all of them are using biodegradable poly bags, and some of them we migrated from even biodegradable, which means, by the way, like the poly bags disintegrate in the environment 3 to 5 years, depending on the material you use. But some of them who can afford, we actually even move to compostable, which industrially immediately can turn into good for the soil.
So I noticed on your website that you have that incorporated into your sustainability pillars and goals. Is that something you did from the very beginning, or did you add some of those over time?
Those have been, some of them have been added over time. I have shifted, I think, approximately 2 years or so. Look, many things I have done. I'm horrible with marketing. It's like, I just do it and then think about what it means for the rest of the community.
You've done a pretty darn good job. You have a beautiful website. I mean, speaking of that, what are some of the challenges? You know, tell the audience, because you're going to have a lot of people who are interested in maybe either as students who are going to launch their own brand, or perhaps some people who already are small brand founders. Talk us through some of the challenges you faced and how you've managed them.
Sure.
I know, I'm sure we could go on all night, but just some highlights.
Sure. As a small brand, you start with like, I mean, there are many of them. If I were to count, as you pointed out, it can take forever. But as a small brand, it's like finding out the raw materials, finding out the manufacturers who would work with you, finances, getting the word out there that you exist. I mean, there might be a crowd out there who are interested in what you're doing, but getting the word out there that you exist in this giant fashion environment, number of brands out there, amount of noise is so much. Corporations are spending millions and millions of dollars. So how do you put yourself ahead of that noise and crowd and be out there?
What did that look like for you? Yeah,
it is a big challenge. Obviously, I mean, I have had my high moments and low moments. It's like high moments are like amazing. You receive one email from a client who is so thankful and appreciates what you're doing, and you feel like there's a reason. You feel very positive about what you're doing. And then there's the down moment when you look at your sales and there's nothing happening. You're like, why am I doing this? Like, I mean, ups and downs, as I said. Marketing, I have learned a lot during last 5-6 years. What needs to happen? I'm not gonna say I'm good at it, but I learned what needs to happen, and now I'm able to reach out to the people who are experts in their areas. In terms of the finances, I am bootstrapping. I do consultancies on the side so that I can support my main business. And this is, by the way, it's not anything specific or special to me. You know, all those giant designers, not giant, but very talented designers working for couture who are supporting their own brands by the work they do for those other brands. So it's like,
Yeah.
you have to do multiple things if you want to get your brand up and running from the ground. In terms of the raw materials I mentioned, finding the right people who will work with you. Of course, it depends on your space, right? If you
Because you're
are
making small quantities in the beginning, right? When you're launching a
exactly,
business, yeah.
exactly, and if you don't have like huge investors, it's very difficult to absorb that cost and
Mm-hmm.
start with a very low price point. And I know that there will be people out there who will say, but your prices are too high. But there is also a reality: small quantity, lots of product development costs, lots of marketing costs. The impact on business is a lot bigger than a corporation
Mm-hmm.
who can absorb it because they have the shareholders and they have the investors who can support them. It's like, I am a bootstrapper. It's all you can see. This is it.
Yeah.
This is the size of the company. So
Well, there's
anyway,
also, I mean, there's value to the idea of quality garments, so that when you're paying that, right, you're talking about the need for less consumption and the need for less
exactly,
waste. So that
exactly.
ties back into that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you remember the old days. This will show our age, but when I was young, it was about hand-me-downs. Our siblings would share the clothes. It
That's
was,
right.
um, yeah, and the new clothes were for more for special events or special holidays, and being clean was more important than something fashionable.
Yeah.
With the era of fashion, Facebook and Instagram, it's like everyone is after the new thing. But guess what? With the COVID, we have all seen.
We've learned, yeah, we don't need all of this, right? It's
We,
really changed consumption. So, you know, let's segue into that. You know, with what do you see as some of the changes that are going to happen within the fashion industry and post COVID, but also some of the just, you know, what you'd like to see as some of the changes within not just the industry, but specifically with suppliers in the area that you've really spent a lot of time in on the production side of it.
yeah. One of the things is obviously in the past, as a small brand, no one wants to work with me, right? It's like, I am tiny. When there are big corporations out there, who cares if you have a couple of hundred pieces to produce?
Mm-hmm.
One attitude that has changed, unfortunately, because of COVID as well, is people had to lower their minimums, like mills, the factories. They're a lot more willing to produce small quantities because those giant corporations now are stuck with millions and millions of units that they haven't been able to sell during this period.
Right.
That's part of the fast fashion, right? If you
Yep,
are producing
exactly.
so many million units, how are you going to sell it, or where are you going to sell it? I know I did read about one of the UK based retailer. I think they have like 300 million units. They were looking for a warehouse to stock it, like 300 million units that they couldn't sell.
Well, and then you
So
have
going
people
back
like
to
Burberry who used to burn their inventory. So
they're still burning.
Yeah.
They're still burning. I mean, like that is the unfortunate thing, the brand equity and like brand value, and they don't want to sell it in the secondhand market or whatnot. But the other things that are changing is like, I mean, we have had, again, all of us for the first time probably in our lives over a certain age group have had time to look into our own lives, right? It's like we were able to do some soul searching. What are the things that are really important for us? What do we want for ourselves as well as the new generations? If we have kids and grandkids, it's just like, what is happening when you remember the first days of COVID? All of a sudden in Venice, there were dolphins and the animals were on the street. Those were the things. Is like, okay, these are nice things that are happening just because humans are not out there.
Absolutely.
And the amount of time, quality time we spend with each other, it has become more important. And consumption is like what we want to spend money. Our money is the things that really worth, and sustainability, and like the clothing we buy. We don't want to buy every day a new thing now. It needs to be something that we can wear today in a Zoom meeting, but also tomorrow out there when we're walking around. So I think a little bit of a mindset has changed in terms of how much we consume.
Do you think some of that will stay?
It will
There's
stay.
no way to. You think some of that becomes ingrained new behavior that will stay with people?
I think, I mean, obviously COVID is not going there, at least for a little more while. And we have been living it such extent that it cannot go away immediately. It's just like the World War II era. Like, think about the people there. Like, were they able to forget that war happened in, like, as soon as the war was over? No, you change and you adapt, and that behavior translates to the new generations as well. And also remember, new generation is more conscious about sustainability than us, because it's the world we are living to them.
That's
like,
right.
I mean,
That's right.
they
No,
have
it's
to
very
live
true.
in that world.
It's driven, a lot of this is driven by by their interests, right? Maybe not necessarily their consumption yet, maybe not with their behavior fully yet, but certainly with their interest. And, which leads me to ask you, what do you think, what will it take beyond COVID for the industry to really develop a sense of urgency to adopt some of these practices on a global scale, or to make this change happen? The consumer, you talked a little bit about the consumer. You have your own brand, but you also have, you're involved in a production business, and you produce product for various companies, bigger companies. How do you see that shift happening, or do you see it, and what would it take for the industry for that to happen?
I mean, my biggest wish obviously is the big corporations to come together and act in unity. When we're not together, like everyone trying to do their own little thing, of course it's important. We all have to do on whatever we can do, but big corporations are driving this waste. Big corporations are the ones who has to be the one leading the change as well. Yeah. I know that every single corporation out there has a sustainability division, right? Like when you think about the capping acid.
The big ones, the really big ones,
Real big ones that buy millions and millions of units. They're the ones who pump into the industry all these fast fashion, and they're the one also need to understand, like, acknowledge the fact that there is only one earth, and we don't have infinite resources, and they need to come together to create the solution as well. I remember from my old days, just as simple as I mentioned you this in the past as well, social compliance and responsibility. Like, everyone have a different standard. Even the factories that are producing to multiple giant brands, like, they try to cater to different requirements of different companies, and they don't have one set of rules. That is for the working hours, etc., are guided by the governments, obviously. But think about sustainability. There is no one rule as far as I know.
There's no standardized guidelines. There's nothing. I mean, to your point, there are some bodies who have put together some guidelines, but there are different groups, right? There's the Sustainability Apparel Coalition. They've got the Fashion Pact. There's obviously B Lab. There's the Higgs Index that's part of SAC. There are a lot of different things, but nothing that people are doing collectively. And I think I very much agree with your point of view of people needing to come together and collaborating on this. And what we find at Bgood Collective, we're having, our concept is to be a collective, because we believe that the only way to bring these changes is certainly not just by us alone as an entity. We believe that we need to build partnerships and collaborate with a lot of different types of people, and all in the way to be able to to make the work, be long lasting and to be effective, because you've got to bring a lot of different points of view and a lot of different skill sets. I find that there's more of that on a smaller scale than there is on a big corporate level, right? There's still a lot of sort of elbowing and not coming together. And you've worked with big corporations and small brands, right? You've seen some of that too. So hopefully, yeah. Do you think that collaboration will come?
Well, the individual level, I mean, I know that they are like heads of sustainability departments. They all work together to a degree, but not to the level that they all can all come together and say, okay, let's write it down. This is like, let's create it all together. It's more about sharing the knowledge than creating a united, whether it's a guideline, whether it's an approach or policy or such thing. And again, I'm gonna mention it, is like, hopefully it's gonna happen, but hopefully it's gonna happen tomorrow or in a month. But one big thing is, let's hope the United States join the Paris Climate Agreement again, because the United States is one of the biggest. There are two giant countries that consume the most. United States is one of this. And us not acknowledging the impact we are creating to this earth is not realistic.
Even China, who was the one that was being blamed and was so far behind everybody else, is projected as moving faster than we are. So they're going to beat us. So let's hope as globally. I think it's going to end up having to be a global effort. We'll try not to get too political tonight. So
yes. So, I want to talk about good things.
Yeah. So talking about good things, I mentioned earlier, your website talks about the different things that you're doing, your sustainability pillars, if you will, your corporate social responsibility goals. You've set some metrics for yourself. But would love to hear a little bit more. First of all, before, I really want to get into your latest project and hear you talk about it and how you got to that idea. But before that, tell us a little bit about some of the other metrics that you've said. You said some of them were there from the beginning and then it evolved. How do you hold yourself accountable? How do you, you're an independent brand. What do you do to keep yourself honest, if you will?
Yeah. Well, one thing that is easier is I'm one person, right? I can make the decision, and that is the easiest part of it. There is like, I cannot lie to myself. If I'm doing it, I'm doing it. If I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it. Initially, obviously, with the people I work with, I know whom I'm working with. I know the people, owners of the factory. I know the workers who are working on my product. Like, I've seen my factories. So I am quite intimate with the people I work with. Okay. That makes my life a lot easier, obviously.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And then the second thing is, since I started working on the sustainable materials, like moving towards the sustainability side, because compliance part was very easy for me to tackle with, because it was engraved to my DNA for the last over 15 years. So it was really easy, being conscious, all those things were done and done. But then the sustainability portion came a little harder. And the funny part is, like, my friend Özlem, she is the one who kind of engraved it into my DNA during our time living together in Los Angeles a few years back, where our freezer became a compost location. We didn't have a freezer because she's an avid recycler. She's great about thinking about the impact of social to world and how to minimize our waste and that kind of stuff. So when you have the coffee grains that you're trying to wash, and it's like all of a sudden no, somebody's like no, that has to go to the compostable area. You're like, okay. So it was great for me because I learned a lot. And during that period, we also did a lot of research about what's going on in the world of sustainability, about the closed loop, is like how the the recycled materials are handled, whether they're truly being recycled, or is it just like these small companies trying to do their own thing, but not able to do it to the level because there are lots of limitations. I mean, I can't talk about that all day as well, so I'm going to park it there. If anyone wants to ask about them, ask offline. I can give you lots of information about that, but it will take an hour. So, and I learned a lot. And like, it's always difficult when you're a small brand, right? You have to make money, you have to bring your brand in front of the audience, like keeping on the spot. I have been challenged by myself approximately like a year ago or so to incorporate more sustainable materials into my business. Before that, it was more pushing it to the, not pushing, but nudging gently the brands I work with to use more sustainable sustainable materials, because they were bigger. They have had either investors or bigger volume, so it was a lot easier to get them into that. But then I was like, okay, what am I doing? Like, I have found this brand to do something meaningful with my life, and only social compliance is not enough, and it's time for me to do more. And it started with like, I have to set my goals, and I'm only one person. I can hold myself accountable, and I'll make it happen. I will make it happen.
So where did it start for you? How did it, like, what did you start with, and how have you added to that?
So the first part was, as I said, we started with I have my first organic products. I have started now working on more recycled materials, but it needs to be bigger percentage. So starting like, I started like a year ago or so, but I also have inventory in hand, right? The fashion cycle, as you know, is not, you cannot get rid of things in a matter of weeks and then bring new merchandise right away into the market. So you have that lag. So there will be a lot more as part of the brand. And while I set the timeline a little bit longer, my goal is to make it a lot earlier than that. Because again, I'm only myself to report to, and I am putting my heart and soul into it, and I'll make it happen. Basically, that's where I am.
So do you just sort of, as you're talking about this, before we get into your most recent project, but are you able to spot greenwashing easily with other brands when they do it? Oh, you've got such knowledge and experience. What do you think? Can you tell?
Yeah.
Tell us, give us one, don't name any names, but give us an example of how you know somebody's greenwashing.
No, I'm actually, this is going to be none of the brands I work with. I'll put it out there. But when I was doing the research for sustainability, we had to do lots of research, right? About the recycling, how people were taking the recycled garments and then turning them into yarns and like making socks and other material, other stuff out of them. So you're like researching and finding these companies, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like reading about it. These are the people I have to work with. And then all of a sudden, the criteria is put in front of you is like, okay, we can take your recycled goods. However, either you have to pay the shipping, and then you have to buy the yarns we process, or you have to donate it, all the recycled material. And I'm not talking about like a donation to next door. I'm talking about countries shipping from United States to Guatemala, shipping to completely different country. And you're gonna pay the shipping charges as well. If you're not planning to take yarn.
Getting it out of you, basically. So you're
exactly
sweeping it under the rug.
Exactly. Even the bigger ones, like right now, you see a lot of recycled polyester everywhere. There's recycled polyester because that's one of the easiest ones, since you're recycling the bottles basically. And a lot easier to ship and find in grand quantities. And unfortunate reality, it's a good thing that we are creating recycled fibers, but it's not out of the materials that turn into clothing already. So that recycled cycle, PET bottles turn into clothing, but then from clothing, where do they go?
Yeah.
So as I said, I can talk a lot about it.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on then. Let's move on. I think you've given us some good color on that. It's great, actually. But so tell us about the latest on your carbon reduction and carbon offsetting.
Oh,
how you got to that.
Joy.
I know. I was so excited when you called me to tell me about this, and you know that I'm as passionate about this type of work as you are. But I think it beyond passion, what I so admire with you and about you is that you're actually making it happen. You've figured it out. You've developed partnerships to do this. So tell me, and you're doing it with your own brand. So tell us, because this is personal too.
Oh, it is personal.
Yeah.
Well, it was very simple initially. How do I offset my carbon footprint? As a small brand, I'm shipping things all over the place unless I do local production. And also the brands I consult with, they are shipping things all around the world. So we have lots of, as fashion industry, we have lots of carbon footprint, right? Initially, I was thinking like, how do I do it? And I did some research. There are lots of companies out there, but I'm little skeptical when it comes to just simply paying to someone, feeling good about it because I pay someone to offset my carbon footprint based on my past experiences. Sometimes with the nonprofit organizations, majority of the money goes, unfortunately, this is not for everyone, but my experience goes to paying the salaries of the people than doing the actual good. Thinking about that, I was like, let me do something in my home country, in Turkey. I know people, I know places, it's going to be a lot easier. And it started as a government project, but anytime you put the government in front of anything, how fast does that go? I was not thrilled about the outcome, and it was really slow. And also, we want to be able to see the results of a few years down the road. And governments change, people change. It's going to be difficult to control. And how do we make sure that whatever we are doing carries to the future generations were the mindset? And during one of our meetings with my friend, the composting friend, there was this aha moment, because I was like, why do I need a government to do the good things? We can make this our pilot. And I didn't even say what I'm doing, right?
No, you haven't said it yet. So the big reveal.
Ta-ta!
I gave you a hint, but I didn't. We haven't gone into it yet. No.
Yeah. Well, we are planting 3,000 not hazelnut, walnut trees, and a little bit of chestnut trees. We have selected some families, basically poverty-driven families who has land, but they do not have the means to plant any trees. They cannot do any agriculture in those lands as well, because they're located at high altitude places, so it's not easy to cultivate anything. And these families have kids at school age, so we have been looking into this. Initially it started like, let's plant some trees. That become, oh, why are we planting just trees? That those trees can give something out there, to the people, and they benefit from it. It become our walnut trees. Then it was like, why don't we select the families with the kids who has something, giving something more to the future generations. So everyone is so excited about it. And then we also are making it such that the families we're giving these plants, they're gonna carry it forward actually. So we are building it in a way Uh, Even if we plant only 3,000 trees,
Yeah.
which is going to happen very soon because there's no government involved. It's going to happen mid of December. If I can, hopefully I'll be there during the planting period.
Yeah.
Even if we do nothing else, just plant 3,000 trees. These families, year 7 to year 12, will be actually donating trees, more trees to the, again, poverty-stricken families so that they can start another wave. By doing that, I'm just going to look at the numbers now because they're carrying it forward. If we do nothing, if I do nothing, Aisha just does help planting 3,000 walnut trees, it becomes, in December 23, it becomes, let's see how many. I believe it's around, in 10 years, 33,000 trees. If I do nothing, only 3,000 trees, because of the way they donate to future generations and the other people who do not have the means to plant themselves. Of course, we don't want to stay with the 3,000 trees and wash our hands, because this is an effort, right? We want to grow it, and we want more people to benefit from it. And we have kind of made the math. If we were to help help people to plant 3,000 trees per year for the next 10 years, it becomes, by year 2040, we end up 500,000 trees.
Wow. So this is like a giant reforestation project then.
Exactly. But that giant forestation project also brings income to the people, because
it produces some things that they will then be able to live off of.
Exactly. Each tree, roughly, we can say 20 kilos of walnut it produces. When 2025, when it's mature, that's worth around $70 to $85. So when you multiply that 500,000, it's a lot of money and income generated for those families. Our goal is, obviously, this is starting as a personal and Shegul project.
Yeah.
But of course, we want to make it more official. We're using this as a pilot, and beginning of 2021, this is going to be our grand closure to 2020. We have had enough of it. We want it to be over, and we're closing it at very good.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's really symbolic. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Beginning of 2021, we're going to found our nonprofit organization so that we can grow it further and use our learnings, not only for Turkey, but also we can use our learnings to grow it to different villages within Turkey, and also use it as a pilot and share our learnings with different countries. It's not going to be maybe walnut tree, but it's going to be something else. Maybe it's going to be
that concept could be great, because you're also helping. You're not just giving a handout, right? You're actually helping do some work that will be sustainable for that community for generations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just so that I don't take the credit. I'm not the creator of the concept, by the way. I stole the idea from micro loan, one of the long ago.
You were inspired by.
Well, shamelessly stole the idea. Shamelessly stole it, and it's for a good, right? It was more about a project in Africa where they were giving goats. One male, one female, and year 2, 3, one of the kids had to be given to another poor family so that they could help each other as well. That's where the idea came from. But I am beyond excited, and
that's excellent.
It makes me so happy. You have no idea.
I'm sure. Well, you'll have to keep everybody updated with the results for sure. So I know, listen, we only have, gosh, is it already 12 minutes to 8? Well, 8 East Coast time. So
yeah.
Done. I've got a bunch of other questions, but I don't think we're going to get to them. There may be some questions for the attendees if anybody want to ask some questions, but as they're thinking about it, or maybe considering putting it there, one more thing I do want to pose to you is, what would you say and this is going to be a very broad question, but how people who are looking to start their own business, right, and are inspired by ethical fashion and inspired by the type of work that you're doing and that we just described, what would you say would be a starting point for them? What should they consider? You know, not everybody comes with the background that you did, that would have maybe some of the resources or the knowledge. How would you advise them? What advice would you give them?
One of the good thing about this community, I will say, is it's different than those like other areas in the world. I'll say people love to help each other. We are like-minded people. And I think first thing I'll say, don't be shy. Reach out to people within the communities, yourself, myself, Britta, or on LinkedIn. I'm sure there are gazillion of different organizations as well. Ask questions. And you're going to be surprised that you're going to hear a lot. And people will help you. Just for me, yes, I am good at sourcing production, but I know nothing about marketing. So I have been exchanging talent with another friend of mine who doesn't know much about production, but she's great at marketing, for example. So there are talent exchanges you can utilize. There's simply information people are willing to give you. I mean, from beginning, from the very early stages, it starts as small as setting your business plan, right? It's like, what do you want to do? Once you put that one sentence on paper, you can start asking people around. And the great thing about today is technology and internet. You can reach a lot more crowd, a lot more people compared to 10 years ago. There was nothing out there, and people were a lot more shy about sharing information. Now it's not. And as I said, reach out, ask millions of questions. Don't get tired of asking questions, because there's nothing wrong about it. The worst answer you're going to get is no, but so what? To the next one.
I have found a very similar experience. I've had a very similar experience, I should say, that I find this community, listen, the concept that we came up with for Bgood Collective, we didn't know, because there's nothing else that it really existed out there that would put nonprofit and for-profit together and sort of think about, you know, really going after small and medium businesses. Obviously there are people that service that, but it was about something that we were passionate about. So we just started to talk to people. We started to put ourselves out there. And like you said, once you do something that's a passion project and you really believe in it, all of a sudden you start to really build that momentum of just meeting other like-minded people. It's the way I met my co-founder, you know, and I think that builds on itself, because that's the mutual connection and that collaboration. It's not about just helping yourself and what can I get out of this. It really is about making it a bigger sort of ecosystem and a bigger community, for sure.
Exactly. So we're getting there one step at a time. And as I said, 14 years ago, in United States, there was nothing about sustainability. It was more about just social compliance and responsibility. Look where we are now. We're talking about sustainability. It takes a time to change the direction of this giant machine, but unless we take the necessary steps, we're not going to be able to change it.
So are you, I'll ask you one final question. So are you optimistic about where this industry is going?
I'm optimistic about my trees. I have lots of trees.
Your trees, I'm optimistic about your trees.
500,000 trees, and that's the minimal. I'm going to get that million.
You're going to create your own forest.
But it's like, I want million trees, whether it's the walnut, the chestnut, or olives. I want my
or
tree.
Hazelnut, or whatever it is. No, about where the industry is going to go, about the ethical fashion continuing to grow.
It's already changing, because younger generation is pushing it. I mean, remember 10 years ago, this was not, it was not out there. The small groups were trying to do things, but now, like, starting from Europe, all those like youth raising their voices. I know from my niece, it's like she's only 18 now. 8 years ago, she made a project about recycling denim and creating new goods out of it. This is the new generation. They know what's happening in the world. And
they're pushing the leaders to make the change, right?
Exactly. They're loud and clear. They know what they want and where they want to be. The governments, for the time being, can resist. Corporations can resist, but how long?
Yep. Agree. I agree with you.
All right.
Great. I think we're good.
Such great points, both of you. Your website is beautiful, the Bgood Collective. There's a lot of information there as well. And I love just what you were saying about you're a one-woman show and you can make a business in ethical and sustainable manner, even by yourself, just using all the support and resources that you can and following your
force of one. It takes a collective forces of one to make this happen, right? And that's how we do it. No.
And it's baby steps. It might be a slow process, like you're saying, it's steering the ship and turning it slowly, but I think it is feeling optimistic, and we just keep striving. And the generation you're talking about, like the next generation, they're demanding this of brands. So, so my daughter as well at 18 is being very selective in how she shops and spends her money and what the businesses stand for. So.
Just so that I know
also, for those who've been around.
Also, like in Europe specifically, brands are, because as I said, like Europe has been at least 10, 12 years ahead of the sustainability curve compared to the United States.
For sure.
The brands are asking, actually, like the stuff that I never heard, nettle fiber, for example. It's like, but there are brands out there asking in Europe for nettle fiber. Is something like it's almost linen feel, but it has different specifics, and it's sustainable, etc. But there are like lots of new questions out there, and it's coming from Europe. United States, as I said, takes a little longer because we are a giant economy, and it takes a little bit more nudge to get us toward that direction.
Yeah, no, absolutely agreed. And I think in the spirit of what you said, Aisha Vultur, in the spirit of community, for any audience members now or down the road as they listen to this, feel free to reach out to myself, to Bgood, to us. Look at our website at Bgood Collective. Reach out to us in terms of mentorship, discussion, questions. Always happy to help.
Absolutely.
Love to see new people starting on this journey. It's great.
Yeah,
it's like I haven't had time to mention gazillion different organizations, nonprofit I worked during my career, but like any information you need, maybe I haven't been exposed to it, but I'm sure someone I worked with has information about it. As I said, don't be shy, just shout out, and you never know where the information will come
from.
Yeah, but they can find you both on LinkedIn, is that correct? And
correct.
Reach out and just mention you saw them here. And also in the Whova app, there's the exhibition space, and you're listed in there as well. So you can go and click on that link if you need to find another direct link to their websites. So I want to thank you ladies so much for sharing your time and your knowledge, and just the encouragement of following your passion and doing it in a very ethical manner, and we really appreciate your time today. So
thank you. This was great.
Thank you so much. And come back at 5 o'clock for virtual happy hour. I'm going to load up my cup over here. So it's been a very full day. And
giant one. I have the giant one.
Come back at 5 and we'll toast to another great day here at Ethical Fashion Festival, day 2, and we'll be back again tomorrow as well. So
all right.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.